Clarity and confusion, two words you don't tend to see too much used in the same sentence, but it is exceptionally powerful, particularly when we look at business and how much advice there is floating around. Let's get stuck in right now and start to look at clarity, confusion, and how advice is directly proportional to each of those occurring. Well, you might be reading that heading and thinking, well, this doesn't even make sense. I mean, I'm confused about the topic and what's actually being discussed. And you know what? That's probably the point of putting that in that way, to be completely honest. I was having a boardroom session earlier today with some of my mentors, first of all, and then jumped into our boardroom guys. And these are our guys that are running, $1 million plus businesses, right? Some of them are running multi-million dollar health and medical businesses, multiple different clinics, loads and loads. They have teams of 15 or 25. There's a couple into the 36 and 38 team member type realm. They're the big players. They're the guys and girls that are doing a really amazing job. Not that if you've got a smaller business, you're not doing an amazing job, because you probably are as well, right? These are the guys that are, getting out there and getting amongst it and having huge amounts of change. But with huge amounts of change and influence also comes huge amounts of challenges and problems. And so we were chatting at Boardroom today all about the whole avenue of getting clarity, but also the confusion that comes at the same time. And ultimately, we can put it down to one big area. Well, there's probably four factors, but one big area that's really overlooked by a lot of people, regardless of whether you're a sole trader doing $80,000 a year or whether you're a big player doing $4.3 million, right? The fact is that getting too much advice from too many different sources is actually going to stunt your growth. And you might be stopping and thinking for a moment there, hang on, what? Getting too much advice is stunting my growth. And yeah, it actually is. See, we were talking, I won't give you the exact details of it, but one of the boardies was talking about the fact that they needed to get a particular speed bump moved so they could, get the next step forward, the next bit of momentum. And they spoke with myself and two other team members in the boardroom, and we gave them, all the same advice. Everything was great. It was clear, etc. Now, because it was a fairly big financial-based decision, they went and consulted with their accountant as well, which is great. And we were encouraging them to do that as well, by the way. Now, the accountant is very risk-adverse and unfortunately gave something that was very, very different advice. So that made them confused. So then this boardroom member decided to go to someone else they knew that was a family friend, that whole family friend, they're this person who does this, says that, blah, 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 etc. Again, we're not saying that was good, bad, or indifferent. I'm just explaining the situation. So within a course of about 6 or 8 hours, this person had actually had 3 really good, well-respected people giving their opinion. And just in this situation alone, that meant that there was 3 very different pieces of advice and recommendations to move forward with. So you can probably see what's now happened. They've now got complete clarity around the fact that they're silly and confused. They're stupidly confused, and confusion has actually been created by the fact that they've got too much advice. And let's be honest, we see this all the time. We see this all the time where people access so much. You can go onto the internet at any time and you can read books, ebooks, you can watch podcasts, you can watch educational whatever you want on YouTubes. There's the TikToks, there's the social medias, there's the free downloads of this, there's blogs, there's newsletters, there's little tips, there's snippet bits and pieces, there's seed marketing, there's educational resources, there's journal articles, there's an absolute plethora of advice, expert opinions out there for anyone to get free at any time. Now, let me just say that I'm not against that, nor am I saying that other people are wrong. That's not what I'm saying. Because even in this situation of the story that I'm telling you about boardroom, and I'm trying to be very careful with my words, actually means that 3 people were asked, and there were 3 very different pieces of advice. And suffice to say, what has sort of panned out is that 2 could have been right and were right, and 1 wasn't. But we could have actually had 3 pieces of advice and 3 different ideas, thoughts, strategies, opinions, advice, etc. And all 3 may have actually been right. So this isn't about whether some people give good advice or bad advice. This is actually about the fact that quite often, by getting too much advice, you're actually going to create more confusion. See, when a mind becomes confused, they ultimately stop moving forward. There's the retail sales, saying from 30 or 40 years that a confused mind buys nothing. If you walk in to buy clothes and there's too many options, a confused mind ends up buying nothing. It's why a lot of the best restaurants, the Michelin star restaurants, don't have a 26-page pizza menu, right? Like you go to some places and you've got like 45 different pizzas you can choose between. But the best restaurants, the Michelin, the 2 and 3 hat Michelin star restaurants, etc., they literally might have 1 pizza, 1 salmon dish, 1 sea scallop dish, 1 steak dish, and 1 chicken dish, right? And they literally are world class at just that one thing. If they gave you 36 different combinations of each of those, you would get confused. And you keep sending the waiter or waitress back. Oh, give me another minute, or we're not sure. And we all know this story. We all know that we've been caught so many times with too many options and we get confused and we don't know what to do. But if you want to make it streamlined for the person to have a great experience in a restaurant or retail, same as in health, you've got to make sure that you are very clear and you don't give them a crazy amount of options. If you give them 8 different ways they could rehab their back pain right now over the next 4 weeks, they're going to get confused and they're going to ultimately not do anything. It's a thing called analysis paralysis. So what we're actually saying in this situation is the more advice you get around questions that you have or speed bumps and challenges, the more advice you get, the more you're actually going to, in most situations, stunt your ability to step forward. You're going to get analysis paralysis. You're going to increase the amount of confusion. You're going to decrease the clarity you actually have about what you need to do next, what you need to happen, make happen, etc. And so as a net result, you're actually stunting your growth. You're decreasing the team's ability to do whatever it is. You're decreasing the amount of impact you can have, etc. So ultimately, we need to be able to get less advice. We need to be able to make sure that all of us have a very clear understanding of who we go to for advice, what we're going to ask. We're going to ask better questions so that we get better advice and more clear advice to move forward with. If we go and ask the same type of question to a group of 16 people and get 16 different varied opinions, it can ultimately be very confusing and ultimately stops you getting momentum, drains you of that clarity of what to do next. And the last thing you want is more analysis paralysis. The last thing you want is for something to slow you down from your objectives, from your goals, from your future success, because we actually had too much noise around us, too many different options and too much confusion. So here's the thing. Find out who you trust. Find out and make sure you're very clear about the people that are your authority, your mentors, the group of advisors that you have around you, and ultimately ask the questions, be more engaged, and then follow through and deliver so that you can implement and execute much quicker and ultimately get better success. Look for people that have done it before, have been there and done that, have got success in exactly what it is that you're needing your advice and assistance with. Because if you continually be one of those people, and we all know people in our lives or in our profession that constantly just want to ask and ask and ask and ask, they're the ones that never really actually get much done because they get themselves so confused, they feel like they need to ask someone else. They get more confused, they ask someone else. They get more confused, and ultimately they have a lack of clarity that leads to a lack of momentum and a lack of, future success. So if you're wanting more time, more money, more freedom, and to ultimately be able to have more impact, you need to be able to have your trusted advisors, work on that authority, and you need to be able to make sure that you get complete clarity to avoid the confusion of asking 5 people and getting 5 different results. Hope that helps, and I'll talk to you again very soon. Hey guys, thank you very much for listening to another episode of the Profitable Practice Podcast. I would love nothing more than for you to be able to leave a review. I get so much joy out of listening and reading the amazing things that you guys say about this. So please subscribe to our channel, leave a review, and share it with your friends. Let's get some more fantastic information out there so all of us can grow the industry together. Cheers for now.